Hi, and welcome to TTELT, Teaching Tips for English Language Teachers, a program of educators worldwide. I'm your host today, Melanie Gobert.
Hello, everyone. This is Melanie Gobert, your host for today's episode of TTELT, Teaching Tips for English Language Teachers. Joining us today is Laila Kamal from the American University of Cairo, where she's a senior instructor. Welcome, Laila.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me, and thank you for everyone listening. My interest is using images in the area of teaching. And what made me think of that was that I found that most people nowadays, including students, of course, love visuals and what they see, not only what they hear. And actually, seeing things is much more effective, and it has a much deeper impact on people rather than only hearing. So up till now, we were reading and listening maybe to lectures and so on. But I thought that using images has always been used as a process of learning, and this has appeared in many different methods of teaching, including the grammar translation method, the audiolingual method, the silent way, and all different methods of teaching that have been going on for a very long time. Now, the pictures and images in our modern world have become a very important aspect. Students use Facebook, images, there are images on billboards, there are images in advertisements, and they play a really big role in our life today. And why not use them in education for educational purposes? Because this can really be of interest to the students. Pictures accelerate learning, they stick, and they are a means of speaking, of listening, of exchanging information. And sometimes in my classes, they are Egyptians very often, and I teach English for Egyptians. So very often they miss the vocabulary. They keep looking for vocabulary and they don't find it very easily. I think that with images, it sort of unwinds them. They are more interested in saying what they think and discussing what they think. And you can provide vocabulary before giving the image so that they can even enhance their vocabulary abilities. Now, we want students to be active participants in class. We don't want them just to listen to lectures. So they have to question, they have to analyze, they have to think in a critical manner out of the box. And another thing that can be very useful in images and using images is teamwork and group work. Students are very often intimidated, and they are the shy ones who don't like to speak with the others in the middle of the class. They don't like to hold discussions with 15 or 20 people watching them. So when they work in pairs or in small groups of 3 usually I have, they all participate, they're not intimidated, and it makes them much more interested and much more active. And with images, you can do this very easily because there's a lot to speak about.
Okay, so what are the ways that you use? Give us some examples. What kinds of things do you teach with images? How do you use them?
All right. Now, images can be used as photographs or comics, cartoons, or they can have images, portraits. They can have anything like that to talk about, and they can analyze them. They can see different images. They can have, sometimes I put portraits of different artists, so they can speak. What is the difference? What are the colors? What are the schemes? What is the imagination behind the picture itself? What does a picture represent? It can be used. I used a picture about, it was an epidemic that happened in 1918, I think, and it was a very, very serious epidemic okay, I've got it here. It was a very serious epidemic. Sorry about that. In Spain, it was a Spanish flu. It was in 1918, and it caused a lot of deaths. I've got a picture of that, for instance, an image of that, and they can relate it to the COVID that was happening at the time. They can relate it to biology. They can relate it to disasters, whatever kind of disaster, to wars. So they can relate it to so many different things. And then they can go onto the internet and find a reading about that, so that they will read, they will discuss it among themselves, they will present it to the class. They can even have a few slides to present it, and they will practice their presentation skills. They can write about it, they can reflect upon it, you see. And there are sometimes they can use pictures to form stories. If they're in a group, they can use several pictures and, like a comic, like a cartoon thing, and they can have a story about that. You can give them guidelines, you can give them vocabulary, you can give them some, information to talk about, to get them going. But then they can reflect, they can use it, they can write them in a journal, they can have a little composition about that if you want, they can have a little class discussion. And I also like to use pictures, like, for instance, I've got a picture of a hand for biology with all the different organs, for instance, and I did show this in the presentation. They can use it for archaeology. You can show them something. I have a picture of a sarcophagus, for instance, and it was Carter actually when he discovered Tutankhamun, since we're in Egypt. And this shows the history, archaeology, discoveries, cultures. They can have pictures of different cultures. They can have pictures of, for instance, Africans, Red Indians, and Westerns, Americans or Europeans, and then they can compare these and find differences, similarities. They can have a definition. If they've got an image, they can define the image. And sometimes images are very, very clearly, I've got an image in black and white. So what do the colors suggest? Why is it black and white? Why isn't it colored? Because this would give the atmosphere of the person the artist wants to convey. It can have the details, it can have the content. They can speak about that. They can also speak about symbolism. Some pictures are symbolic, and they can use these to symbolize whatever they want to say. They can use pictures to for example, they can use pictures for history. I've got a picture, for instance, of Lenin and Nelson Mandela. And the two pictures are, Lenin's is in black and white and Mandela's is in color. Why? What is the difference in the periods? What is the difference in the situations? What countries do they belong to? So all this is very, very inducive to saying things, to discussing, to writing. And of course, they can search for more information in the internet if they want. They can even use pictures for psychology. I've got an image of a little puppy who is lost and doesn't have a home. So how would you convince people to buy this puppy, to give him a home, for instance, you see? So it can be used for many different reasons. For cloning, I've got something, the Dolly the sheep, very well known. And then you can start a discussion with that. You can start a reflection. What do you think cloning does? Is it right? Is it wrong? And you can even go to ethics, morality, genetic engineering, whatever you want. I mean, so many topics are offered with images that it is very, very easy to find something that you can deal with in images. It gives them greater motivation. They're more enthusiastic. And of course, they participate much more. And then they analyze. They learn to use their critical thinking abilities. They think out of the box. They say things which they wouldn't think of. And if they're a group, it helps them to exchange information and to discover things that they wouldn't have seen on their own. So it really gives them analytical skills. It gives them critical thinking skills, and it gives them so many different means of expressing themselves. See, you can have historical events, as I said, and I think that nowadays, in our age, students in university, they have a lot of workshops to present, they have a lot of presentations to give, and this will help them with presentations because it doesn't make it as dry as if you've got a group or list of words and just information given in words. The images students with images avoid reading too much, because in presentations in class, they have a tendency just to read what they want to say, and it becomes boring. It's not a good workshop, not a good presentation. So these pictures enable them to avoid reading. They look at the picture, it generates ideas, and they can speak with the images. Again, they are not very shy, and this is in the field of school, of university. But otherwise, I noticed that in any areas now, marketing and actually is very, very in. People want to sell their products, whatever product it is. So again, you have to attract people. And images are a very interesting way of attracting people to buy something, whether it's a service or a product. The more imaginative the image is, the greater effect it will have on the people, on the audience. And
Okay.
so they have to, yeah.
We're just running out of time, I'm afraid, Laila.
Oh, so I have to wrap it up. Okay. So anyway, images are found nowadays on billboards, in advertisements, in the streets, anywhere where you're walking, on your phone, anywhere. And the important thing in images is the colors. So you have brands using certain colors. You've got Nike, you've got Vodafone, and you associate the colors with the brands. And this is interesting to speak about, and how people use colors in their advertisements or to sell their products. And I hope that this was a very interesting discussion for you. We are influenced unconsciously, involuntarily, and inevitably by images all the time. I hope you can make use of that in your classroom, and I hope that this was an interesting and helpful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, Laila.
It's my pleasure. I hope everything will be fine, and I hope that people will enjoy what has been said. Thank you very much, Melanie. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This has been your host, Melanie Gobert, for today's episode of TTELT, Teaching Tips for English Language Teachers.
Thank you for joining us today. Share with us how you are using these tips. Leave us a comment or voice message on social media or at ttelt.org. Thanks for joining this episode of TTELT, brought to you by educators worldwide. Follow, like, and subscribe to TTELT on your social media, and try a new teaching tip today.